Good evening, everyone. I'm Amos Kingsnake. The title leaves nothing to the imagination, yes. Grinding Elo is digital self-harm. I've mulled this thought over in my mind for a good long while, though I anticipate that it's likely to strike a nerve with a lot of people, especially the type to watch this kind of video in the first place. So I'll try my best to make my case keeping that initial negative reaction in mind. I've seen the Elo grind do some nasty things to people I've cared about. I've seen it single-handedly destroy blossoming potential friendships, and I've even seen it do damage to myself through my own experiences with engaging in the Elo chase. I'll be doing my best to explain why. The tone of this video is going to be a bit more serious than the average piece that I make, mostly because I do think this grindset mentality is a serious problem that's a major contributing factor to a lot of the grief that I see people experience when they play Counter-Strike, or really any game that has a competitive atmosphere and or a ranked ladder with a denoted Elo score. So I'm just going to jump right into it. To begin, I first am going to have to lay out the frame behind my argument. In psychology, there is a concept known as the locus of control, and to explain it succinctly, it's a system for categorizing things that you either can or can't directly, control, as the name implies. Things that fall inside of your locus of control are that which you directly have authority over. These would be things like what you want to eat for breakfast that morning, how you want to spend your free time, or in game terms, how you want to warm up or how you want to practice before a big match. Things outside of your locus of control would be all the factors external to you that you have no influence over. This would be things like the weather, or how the road looks on your commute to work on any particular day, or in game terms, what your teammates or your enemies are like, or how good or bad the server quality is. How does this all tie into the acquisition of Elo? Well, it's an important part to understanding the major stressor making Elo grinding so insidious and potentially mentally draining and straining on both yourself and those around you. Based on how I describe the concept, where do you think the act of winning a match falls on the locus of control spectrum? Is it inside or outside? The hard truth about winning is that in all truth, it is solidly outside of your locus of control. Some of you may be protesting that assessment, but I have direct influence over the match. If I perform better, I'll be more likely to win the match. And while that may be true as an isolated statement removed from all other factors, unfortunately, taken in the wider picture alongside all other external factors, it is simply a minute blip in the entirety of the process of what a win actually entails. A competitive PvP environment is inherently going to involve something that is always solidly outside of our locus of control. Other people. Living, breathing, thinking people. We can't pick our teammates. And even when we can't pick if they or even ourselves will be able to show up at 100% of our expected capacity. And even if we could force optimal performance out of our allies and ourselves, we can't pick our enemies. And even if we could choose our foes, we can't pick whether they'll be performing better or worse than expected out of them. And even if we could crank the metaphorical difficulty slider of another human being like a Mario Party NPC, we can't control whether the server glitches or whether the power goes out or whether you just happen to get unlucky. Plus 1,000 other minor factors that we can't always be sure will pan out the way we think they will. And all of these factors are tugging on the wheel of control that determine the match's winner. Controlling the win is outside of your hands, outside of your locus, much as it might be a tough pill to swallow. I use CS as an example, but this applies even to competitive games that are 1v1, even with games that are as simple as chess. There is no perfect system for guaranteed success against something as imperfect as a human being, especially when you yourself are an imperfect human being. Even amongst the greatest players of all time, even Donk only has around a 70% win rate at most on FACEIT. That's almost a third of a chance to lose any given match, by one of the best players and puggers in the world, if not the best. Win rate alone is chaos, but yet, win rate is the major influencer in Elo determination. Even in services like the aforementioned FACEIT, where Elo gain or loss is weighted depending on personal performance, a loss still loses you Elo, even if you drop a 1.8 KPR, and a win still grants you a gain, even if you were spending the entirety of the match sniffing paint in T-spawn, while Sergeant Big Nuts on your team dropped a 160 ADR game and hard carried you. Now with me saying all this, you might be getting the impression that I'm offering a pessimistic or a doomer position on the whole process of playing competitive or ranked. And while I do believe that the system heavily encourages an extremely toxic and self-harm adjacent mindset to be adopted, I actually do believe that competitive environments can be indulged in healthily and in a way that makes any match, win or loss, a fulfilling experience. Elo be damned. And it all ties back into the locus of control. If you want to feel better about Ranked, feel happier about Ranked, turn lamenting losses into trials to be smiled through, and even improve the feeling of wins by altering them from laborious sighs of relief to elated celebrations, then here's an easy concept with a mountainous level of difficulty to adopt. Focus on only what lies in your internal locus of control. That's it. Now, I won't just leave you with that statement, I'll try to outline some steps you can take internally in order to try to follow that advice. The first step is letting go of your ELO score, learning to accept whatever number it displays, whatever minus score, loss streak, subpar division the game happens to slap you with. Bronze, level 4, light blue rank, who cares? It's all fake. It's all fake. It's all fake. And it always has been. Not only does it have no meaning, it is as ephemeral as the wind blows in any given direction. It can all be taken away at a moment's notice. ELO can be rebalanced, ladders can be shaken up, seasons can bring soft or hard resets that reduce that title or that number into dust. 2. Now when you've been trained for dozens or hundreds or even thousands of hours to give stake to these ELO points or divisions or silly little symbols, it's not going to be easy to deprogram your brain off of giving them weight or chasing after better numbers or higher scores. Especially if you're surrounded by people who are all feeding into that system, which, well, while I don't want to advocate for the dissolution of friend groups outright, I do think it's important to consider quarantining yourself from playing with those people if they're feeding into a system that actively degrades your experience or your mental health, which these ELO systems are designed to do, because they're designed to be addictive. It's okay for this part to take a while, especially if you've tied your ELO to your identity like a lot of people have in part or in whole, and especially if you structured who you choose to spend time with around this identity. If you've chosen your friends based on how dedicated they are to the hamster wheel, it's going to be hard to find a way to stop running that endless loop yourself. But once you've learned to let go of chasing ELO as a goal, it's time to replace that goal, which leads us smoothly and easily into the next step, which is picking a new goal that aligns within your internal locus of control rather than that which lies outside it. After you've relinquished your attachment to your rank, you're going to need to set a new raison d'etre, a new reason for playing. Otherwise, the second you encounter someone who has the goal you just spent all that work detaching yourself from, whether that be a random or perhaps a friend who plays the game for the wrong reasons like you used to, they can very easily cause you to be forced back into that toxic mindset through sheer peer pressure or conformity bias. Think of the act of playing a ranked match with other people as setting sail on the open seas. Nobody can control the waves of the ocean or how the wind blows upon them, but we can set our sails before we embark on our journey, and picking a new goal to move towards is setting our sails. A ship with no sails is completely at the mercy of wherever the waves take it, but as long as we have our sails in the correct place, the most the waves and the wind and the storms can do is offer mild resistance to the path we chose ahead of time. But what are some good goals that we can set that fall within our locus of control, you may be asking? A lovely question. Allow me to share a few. I know this is one of the most cliche statements of all time, but it is something that still rings true if you can get past the immense memification of the idea. But the goal of having fun outright is always something to strive for. Just trying your best to have a good time and enjoying the act of performing and playing the video game, regardless of the outcome. At the end of the day, you and I and many others, hopefully, deeply love this game, enough to keep coming back time and time again. And I think it's important to remember that love when it comes time to ask ourselves what really matters, why we play. I know I personally love the game enough to where I would still play CS even if there was no ranked, and I'm almost certain most people who play the game currently would do so as well. Having fun is solidly something that we can choose for ourselves, independent of what anyone else does or thinks on the server. Another potential internal goal to adopt would be the idea of just personal growth, whether that be mechanical or even social. Make the goal of every match to perform the best you can, and see each new set of opponents as an opportunity to grow and experiment. You can't lose if losing only means that you get the chance to become a better player after all. And finally, if neither of the two previous options are appealing to you, you could always just try to have a good time for the sake of the people you're playing with. The goal in this case would be controlling your emotions and your mood so that the people around you don't grow to despise the act of queuing with you. I can tell you from first-hand experience that I've had to cut people off that were otherwise good or even great people outside of the server who turned absolutely insufferable inside of the server, regardless of how well they performed. And I've had people cut me off in the past for my own unpleasant behavior when it comes to what ranked matches used to do to me, which thankfully I've gotten a lot better about. Your rank is ephemeral, but your friends could be far longer lasting by a wide margin, especially if you act with grace in class, even in the toughest of situations. People don't really remember the score lines, or the silly JPEGs of the rank icons, or the little numbers next to your name, but they do remember how you made them feel, and how you acted when everything was at its most dire. Counter-Strike is a stressful game, but the true measure of someone's character isn't what they do when times are easy. It's what they do when the pressure is overwhelming, and when the stakes are sky high against you. I admire not the man who only smiles through a 13-0, but who smiles through watching their teammate go septuple negative and lose the bomb in the middle of Monster for the 4th round in a row. Quote Abraham Dinkham, "Changing what you strive for in this game to be centered around what you can control is to your direct benefit and to the benefit of those around you." As we venture into the closing remarks of this piece, I'd like to start off by saying that none of what I'm saying is a condemnation of character for falling victim to this ELO grindset mentality. These systems are designed to entrap us by people far smarter and richer than us in order to promote a never-ending grind and eventually financial servitude to the game, whether that be through offering premium matchmaking queues, offering psychological relief from the general malaise that comes from trying to grab at something as impossible to reliably attain as a win through consumeristic in-game cosmetic purchases, or whatever the hell COD has been doing this past half-decade with that engagement-based matchmaking devil tech that they've been unashamedly foisting on whoever's still playing COD these days. It isn't our fault for getting entrapped by that which was made to entrap us. But it is our personal responsibility to come to understand that we are indeed entrapped and that we need to break free from it for the sake of our own health and well-being. Because make no mistake, even at the end, quote-unquote, of the ELO grind, what does that even look like? Oh, you reached 20k ELO? You could be 25k ELO. Time to go back to grinding. Oh, you reached level 10? Oh, you're only 2010 ELO. That's not a real level 10. Time to go back to grinding. You might think, oh, I'll stop once I hit my goal. I'll be satisfied, but that hardly ever turns out to be the case. Because in the ELO grind, reaching whatever your personal ELO goal is just becomes the new norm, and the system is made for the norm to never be satisfying. And when a system's normal experience isn't satisfying, that's not a system worth participating in. My name is Amos Kingsnake. Have a peaceful night, and burn your dread. Go into the future, and I will meet you there.
Oh no!
He killed his teammate trying to shoot you!
Really? What the fuck? Through the wall? No way.
Headshot trying to kill you!
Saving that.